Welcome to all of you to the first of four uh, Siburt Institute Chaplain Fellowship Lunch and Learn sessions. This year we're doing that the first Thursday of every quarter, mostly. Uh, and Today we have with us um, David Bearden. Uh, David is the lead minister of the Graham Street Church of Christ in Stephenville, Texas. He has for years served as a volunteer chaplain with the police department and with the Holistic Investment Network, which he'll tell you about. Um, Please be aware that today's session is being recorded. And I would also, as the person who coordinates the schedule, I would want to let you know that our next Lunch and Learn will be on April 2nd. Sophie Phillips and Hannah Showalter will be making a presentation on uh, Taylor's Gift, which is a peer support group for organ donor families. And so that'll be coming up in April. Um, I would also like to make you aware that we have openings in the Lunch and Learn schedule for the last two sessions of 2026, July 2nd and October 1st. So if you would like to present, please let me know, and we will be more than happy to put you in on the schedule. Um, so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to David Bearden, our presenter. Welcome. Today's session is being recorded for those of you who just joined the meeting. Go ahead, David.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Paul and David. I appreciate the help in getting going. I'm not a tech guy, so bear with me, as I do this presentation today. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I have a long history of being a minister in the local church. I started preaching when my dad was rotating, helping a little church near where we grew up. And I would go with him once a month when he took his turn preaching, and I would go with him. But he became an elder in the church, and he decided he needed to be back at the local church. So at 15, I started being in his rotation spot. And then the gradually guys fell off, and I would take their place. And by the time before I was 16, I was preaching every Sunday at that little church. So I've been preaching for a long time. I turned 70 just last month, and I'm thinking about retirement and that sort of thing. And I've got involved in being a community chaplain and working with a group called WIN. And I'll tell you a little bit about how that developed. When we started looking at the problems that we were having in our community, we felt like we needed to bring everybody together that could help our community. And that's this collaborative work that we put together. My background in education, I started at Harding University, then Harding Graduate School, and started off working in New Testament and that area of ministry and education. But I kept being drawn to church growth. And so I started working in that field, and I had to write on something. So I wrote about church mergers. And the first work that I went to after graduate school was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we did a merger started the process of a merger of three different congregations. And so I found myself, suddenly using that I wrote about. And then when I moved to St. Louis, I worked with two congregations, not as a merger, but a partnership between two churches, where we would share like the youth minister, and we would share our bus ministry, and yet we maintained our two independent relationships. And it was in St. Louis that I started in hospital chaplain work. And I started working with, oddly enough, the Children's Hospital. that was connected with Barnes Jewish and Washington University there in St. Louis, and started my training in chaplain work there. And eventually I was a chaplain with the Paul Hospital. And I moved from there to Wenatchee, Washington, and served the church there we merged two churches together, East Wenatchee and the old Okanagan Church, and became the King's Orchard Church. And I was a chaplain with the hospital there. And then I moved into the greater Los Angeles area with the Fullerton Church, Sunny Hills Church of Christ, and worked with the hospital that was in that community. And then moved to, let's see, where was I next? Went back to St. Louis, and the McKnight Road and Mid County Church merged together while I was there. And I got back involved in working in chaplain work there while I was in St. Louis. And then moved to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which was an interesting move. The tornado had just hit Tuscaloosa, and I mean, a third of the city of Tuscaloosa was damaged in the tornado. And the mayor challenged the ministers at the churches, and I was at the university church, to continue to work on the rebuilding of the city. That we were a great help right after the tornado, but we kind of moved away from that. And he challenged us to get back to work. And Hope Network was formed as a collaborative unit of our ministerial alliance and the different churches of doing work together to helping the city to rebuild. And in the process of that, I went back into the chaplain work with the hospital and doing community service and developing the city. But another factor that influenced my future was that there was a congregation just down the road from us that completely lost their building. And it was a predominantly black Baptist church. And we invited them to join us at our church, at the University Church of Christ. And so we had their congregation and our congregation housed in the same building. And we had a gym and a chapel. And so we divided our worship assembly. They had one place and we had the other. And they kept their identity in that way. But we shared our children's ministry and our youth ministry, and anything like that we did together, which was an exciting work. So it wasn't like the mergers that I had worked with. It was a partnership, but it was two different denominations together, racial differences, all kinds of things that we had to work through. And that lasted for 2 years. And so again, it was a situation where I was working in the community with the local church and even with the hospital. And I did some volunteer work with the police department there also while I was in that place. So then I moved to Stephenville, Texas, with the idea that I'm not going to be as busy. This is a small town, and we've got a good staff, and so we're going to relax a little bit. And that didn't turn out to be the case. We had some problems that came up. We had to deal with that were crisis moments for our church. COVID hit. We had to deal with that. I was a PRN on-call chaplain with the hospital. But when COVID hit, we had to change the way we approached that. I had to go on staff at the hospital. It changed my being on call to actually being on staff at the hospital on regular hours, routines, and that sort of thing. So I became more enmeshed in that. And after COVID, we had already began to sense this real need for a more collaborative work with the community, all our resources coming together to help those in need. So Texas Health offered a grant for a collaborative work that could do things like that. And it was throughout the Texas Health system. but they were especially interested in helping rural medicine. So my neighbor and I, he was a Baptist missionary at one time, and he very much had a heart for our community. And we started working together on a plan where maybe we could use some of the things that we had learned in our collaborative work to apply for that grant. And we got well underway, attending all the meetings, all the training, all the things that Texas Health required for us to apply for this grant. But then I was told that they might have a conflict of interest in going with me on the grant since I was on staff at the hospital. And I said, well, we can solve that problem. And I resigned my position, and it was decided that I would become a community chaplain with this new program that we were developing that was a collaborative effort with different agencies to help with poverty and other needs in our community. We had about a dozen partners at the time that we got the grant, and we began to kick this off. So with that, let me show you a few slides to share with you about what we did. So let me make sure I can get there. All right, so this is a presentation about WIN. WIN stands for Holistic Investment Network. We focus in on Arath County, and we're working to alleviate poverty through a whole person approach. We combine the holistic with the idea that it needs to be holistic in that we try to offer as much as we can when a person comes for help, not just dealing with their specific thing that they've asked for. For example, if they come in asking for food, we realize that there's probably a lot more things that they need to deal with. So we want to deal with it holistically, dealing with the different agencies that can offer help and offer it for the whole person, trying to meet the need of the person who is being helped. So we kind of made it our motto that we're going to help people in need to become whole, healthy, and thriving. And we would work with a collaborative network of resources. And we began to develop partnerships with all the different agencies that could help in doing this. So we developed this video to explain what we do. So let me share it with you.
In Texas, Erath County has a problem. Our loving community always helps others in need, but our community is not getting better. Something is wrong. A few people got together and began to ask questions. Why is our poverty rate higher than the federal and state averages? What is stopping our community members in need from overcoming? How can we help our community to be whole, healthy, and thriving? Welcome to WIN, Erath County Holistic Investment Network, where our focus is on individuals overcoming issues that lead to poverty. So what does WIN do? WIN provides loving and caring people to walk with those struggling to overcome their situation. WIN can uncover the obstacles preventing someone from achieving success individually, or unhealthy living conditions, or maybe mental or health issues that may be hindering us from being complete. And WIN also helps meet some of those emergency financial bills causing so much stress. But that is only the first step. WIN is not a standalone organization. We are joined in our mission by over 20 partners throughout the county that bring decades of real-world experience. Our partners help meet physical, mental, emotional, medical, financial, hunger, shelter, legal matters, safety, spiritual, educational, employment, and so many other factors that derail our success. Our cooperative goal is to tackle these barriers that stop us from being whole, healthy, and thriving. So, where will this happen? Well, here is the dream. The Win Center is a place for community, a place to gather, a food pantry, intake center, kitchen, meeting rooms, event days, and even a place to worship. And how about the Win Mobile Health and Intake Bus, reaching throughout Erath County, providing health checkups and exploring other solutions wherever you are within the county. Big dreams, big plans, big opportunities. County partners working together on solutions to help our community become whole, healthy, and thriving. When we work together, we win.
So we started with dealing with the intake hub, and from there we expanded out into working on the second phase of it, the mobile health and intake bus. We took an old, not an old, but used people mover and converted it on the inside where it can be used for wellness checks and a place where people can get an exam, and we can maybe figure out some of the things that we can help them begin their journey toward having a healthier life. And then eventually, we hope that we can have the one-stop shop where we can have representation of the different agencies that we work with, working with us. Also in this picture, you'll see the bus that we use, but also one of our partners is Homelessness Help, which is another nonprofit I was involved with in starting in our community. And we were spending a tremendous amount of our money that we were raising, putting people up in motels, and that's not a good way to handle that emergency need. So we have found that using our RV trailer, having it at a place where people can come and stay in an emergency situation. So number one is well underway. Number two is just developing. And number three is still a dream at this point. So this is the way it looks if we were to try to chart out, and we use the wheel as our logo. The hub on the wheel represents the WIN intake, where we bring people in, we do assessments, we evaluate what they need, and we try to develop a relationship with them where they can trust us and trust that we can connect them with the right people who are going to be able to help them. And so we take them from the hub and send them out to the referrals that we give them. And that's the spokes. The spokes are the resource areas that we have connections with and the service providers. And so the hub and the spokes work both ways. Sometimes the initiation of bringing someone into the hub comes from the spoke, and sometimes they come directly to us in the hub and we send them out the spoke. And then we'd like to think of the outer rim of the wheel is quality management, that we work to continue to follow up with the people that we bring into the hub and send out on a referral. But we also continue to work with all of the people that we're connected with in our referrals and make sure that the quality management of what they're doing is being fulfilled. So this is what it looks like when someone comes into the intake hub. We're trying to deal, again, holistically with the whole person. So we bring them in, do the intake, we do assessments, and I'll share with you in a few moments about the assessments that we do, but we try to assess what their needs are. One of the problems that we have, for example, in our food pantries, when a person comes for food, they basically just deal with that. They may occasionally ask for clothing. For example, our church has basic needs, and that food pantry also has a clothing store, and we help with different things in addition to that. But primarily, people focus on one emergency need. And the reality is they have a whole group of things that they need to be addressing, and they need to do that holistically, or they're not really going to be on a path to becoming thriving in their lives. So do the assessments, and we set goals. Now, we encourage the setting of goals to be from the people that we're serving. When we work with our clients, the community member that's in need, we try to help them to see what their needs are and the direction that they need to go, and to set goals themselves. If they do that, then they're going to be ahead in the game. And then we assign their case. So we have an intake coordinator. That's the only paid position that we have in WIN. And she works with the intake process and assigns, either she stays with that person to continue their journey, or a case manager is assigned that's connected with the most dominant area of their need. Then we do referrals out to the different areas where people can serve their needs. We now have 51 partners. We started off with about a dozen. Then we went to 21, I think, at the time that the video was made, and now we have 51 partners that work with us, and all of them contribute something toward bringing wellness. We walk with them on their journey. We don't just send them out to the referral. We continue on the path with them to help make sure that they're keeping in mind their goals and helping them to have a positive approach in what they're dealing with. We have accountability. We check continually to see if they're making their appointments. If, for example, they have been asked to set up an appointment for counseling, it's important that they keep their appointment. And we do not interfere with what help they're receiving as what goes on in the counseling appointment. But we do check with them to make sure that they're keeping their appointment. And that's true with all the partners that we have. And then we continually evaluate whether they're moving in the right direction, and if the help that they're getting is really bringing about a positive impact. And also watching for maybe some things that did not show up in the original assessments. So here's right now the assessments that we deal with, and we don't try to do all of this at once. We try to time the assessments when it works best for the client, but we do always do the social determinants of health, and our intake process is built on that approach, the social determinants of health. We're currently involved in a research project to where the ACEs score is being used. We use the adult assessment with the 10 areas of concern, and with 2, then we do a certain type of referral if 2 show up on that. So that's the ACE score. That's adverse childhood experiences. The resiliency we like to have at intake, where people score on the resiliency assessment to see how they're doing, emotionally, mentally, just how they're feeling, they're doing, their impact on that. And then we like to later come back as they're getting help to see if that resiliency score is on the rise. We do an assessment on social isolation and loneliness. This is one of the things that we watch for, especially when we have been working with someone and maybe they're a distance out from where we are, and it's difficult for them to get in and get help. We want to see how much help they have in the area that they're in. For example, when someone is being discharged from the hospital, oftentimes they don't have the help that they need at home. They may not be able to get their medication. They may be at risk in some other areas. They may be going home to a house that's not safe. But oftentimes, if there's an indication that there's social isolation, we know that we need to work on some plan to be able to have them being checked on. So we do that assessment. It's a real brief 5-question assessment. And then we do a spiritual assessment. And of course, I'm usually the one that's doing that part of it. As a community chaplain, I use, the hospital training that I've had in my experience. That helps me tremendously in my relationship with the clients that we work with. But also that training works well in helping me in the collaborative efforts with the community partners that we have. We also tried to emphasize in the chaplain work that I've done that we're trying to be holistic in our approach. Holistic medicine is a prime motivation in most hospitals anyway. And so is the idea that we need to work with people holistically with all the resources that we can pull together. So the chaplain work that I do in that regard, moving people to well-being, is much connected to my background in other chaplain work. And just like with being a hospital chaplain or a police chaplain, confidentiality is so very important. But yet, if you're working in a cooperative, collaborative approach with several service providers, you also have to have a way, like you do in a hospital or with officers that are with the police, you have to be able to communicate within the system. So I'm already experienced in the idea of how you balance confidentiality and yet have that communicative approach in your system of care. And then, of course, you're dealing with, as a hospital chaplain, you're trying to deal with that whole approach to the whole person, that the spiritual and the emotional are so much a part of healing. And this is true in any area of need that we encounter. So here's a list of different areas. And like I said, we have 51 now, just had a new addition. 51 community partners that provide resources and services. And you can see from this list, it's in a huge range of help that we can provide for people. Not because we do it, WIN doesn't do all of this. We get people connected to the people who can do it. So the chaplain's role with the intake and the referral procedure, first, it's very important in setting the tone, the building of the trust, the building of relationship, supporting the intake coordinator in being able to get the information that's needed to be able to do the assessments. And so we often help with timely assessments in doing that. And I come into play with as I'm needed in helping the intake coordinator do that. I also serve a purpose in watching for unidentified needs. As we walk through the process with clients that come in, we don't always grab everything that we need to. There's not always a full disclosure, and trying to be able to identify those areas that we missed. We try to help the client set personal goals. Often I'm involved in that. We try to balance a holistic, whole person approach with a one step at a time process. And this is really important. Sometimes when you're trying to deal with everything that's needed and trying to get people that holistic help, it's difficult for them to think in terms of the different things that they need to do, that they need to slow down, set a priority on this is what I need to do, one step at a time, what comes next after that. For example, this week we've been dealing with 2 homeless people that we're trying to get them everything that they need. And when you come away, for example, I took a man to Workforce Solutions yesterday. And as he started hearing all the things that they were going to do and all the things that they needed him to do to be able to help him, you could just see he was just getting more and more overwhelmed. The list was getting longer and longer and longer. And I felt, that in helping him and that relationship that we've been building, I needed to not take away from the fact that this is a lot of things that you're going to be able to get help with and things that you need to do. You needed to take one step at a time and feel good about how you've accomplished that. So we do that. I also help in making introductions to service providers. When someone comes into the system and they're being referred to someone, oftentimes that's a traumatic experience and trying to go alone, to go and ask for help and try to tell. And oftentimes their stories are told again and again and again. If someone walks with them, it helps them so much in being able to face that and to deal with that and to grow from that. So that's another area where I come in, and identifying spiritual need and helping them to be open to getting help in that area and making connections with maybe their prior faith commitment and where they can go back to that spot and start again in that relationship. Or maybe they have no connections, and helping them to form new connections. So that's part of my chaplain role. So here's some of the current intake and referral relationships that we have. ECCB, Arath County Community Bridges, was a group. It started off being primarily food pantries, but it began to involve other people working together during COVID. And where instead of operating independently, we began to work together to meet the food insecurity problems that surfaced during COVID. United Way gave a grant for us to help start the ECCB, and it continues to be a functioning collaborative effort. I work with the hospital in working with the transition team, which is the group that handles discharges from the hospital. They are introduced to WIN during that process and encouraged to let us work with them and for them to follow up with that. So I work with the hospital in that way, and the chaplain at the hospital works in helping us make that handoff there. Stephenville Cares program is our EMS. They primarily look at doing health checks, wellness checks, making sure people are in a safe environment. Sometimes this comes from a referral from the hospital, and now that WIN's involved in it, we connect them in that way. But it oftentimes can come from a report of a community member that's concerned about someone. And so the CARES program, the EMS workers go to a home and check on people. And now they're able to use our mobile unit to be able to help with that. Community connection cohorts was something that was started by CASA. They ask us to do the intakes for them, and they're doing a research project on resiliency and also the adverse childhood experiences. So we're helping them with that program and using many of our partners in helping to develop this coalition of raising that resiliency score. The Ministerial Alliance and churches call upon us to do intakes and referrals for things that they're working with. We have the Ministerial Alliance that are several churches, but not all churches in our community are a part of the Ministerial Alliance. And we have some churches that are independently partners with us. The schools, the people in schools that are handling, for example, the homeless children that are identified by the school as being in that, they ask us to confidentially help children and their parents or their guardians in dealing with things that they need. And oftentimes we don't even know who those families are, but we're provided information about what we need to help with and what kind of referrals they need. We work with the city and the county government. We work with the city police. I am a volunteer chaplain with the city police department, but we bump shoulders with the county all the time, and it's a good relationship. Homelessness Help is a nonprofit that was started that we live in a community. Stephenville has been booming, and part of that is with the growth of Tarleton State University. Tarleton State has doubled more than doubled in size in the almost 9 years that I've been living here. When I started here, they were about 6,000. Now they're running about 13,000 as a student enrollment. And with that has come a shortage of affordable housing. There are entities outside of Stephenville that are buying up a lot of the apartments and small homes and so forth to use for student housing. And the increase in rent has forced many, especially elderly people or low income, who are not able to afford the rise in rent. And so we have a shortage in housing in our community. So Homelessness Help was started to help with that. And they're very much a partner with WIN, and we do the intake for them. Tarleton State University has been a great partner with us. Their social work department and other areas have been working with us in partnership. I'll say something about this in a moment, but we partnered with Tarleton State University in doing poverty simulations, and it's been a great partnership to help people really be aware of the need that we have in our community. And Foster's Home, it is a foster system. It's houses that house foster children, but it also was started by a family by the name of Foster. So it was Foster's Home originally. And they're connected with my church. The elders at my church are the executive board of Foster's Home, and I also work with them. And WIN is now connected with some of the work that we do with them. So the follow-up, the working with the client, walking with them as they follow through on what they're doing, helping them to be evaluated as they go, to bring in extra help as needed. So it's so important. So we have to build the relationship, bathe this situation in prayer, whatever it may be. Even if they're not comfortable with prayer, that doesn't mean we're not praying about it. And we have found over and over and over again that people are so excited to have someone to pray with them about what they're working with on this journey. We stay in contact with them, realizing that for many of the people that we work with, their cell phone is their lifeline. We make sure that they have one that will do the work that they need to do to get in touch with the referrals that we give with them. And that gives us a way of helping follow up with them. They set their goals. We don't set them for them, but we help them to focus in on where they're going with the goals that they've set, help them to build confidence every step of the way. That keeps them going. We do constant assessment, formal and informal assessments to see what they need. And we don't reward their accomplishments by dropping them. So many of the people that we work with, we're finding that they have been dropped, or at least they feel like they have been dropped. And we try so hard to make sure that we don't give them that impression. We want them to know that their accomplishments will be rewarded by us continuing the journey with them. And then we want to help them to build a support group. We'd love to help them be involved with the church family. We want to connect them with support groups like CR or grief support or whatever it might be. So involving churches. Of course, the Ministerial Alliance is a major part of involving churches with what we do. We also have some churches that are involved with us and support us with volunteers. They support us with money and so forth. Rural churches are vital to our mobile unit. When we go, especially when we find that there are people dealing with social isolation and loneliness, churches provide a great place for them to become a part of socializing the people that we help. And these are identified sometimes before the mobile unit is involved, but that's a special place where rural churches are connected. There is, I hate to say this, but this is true. churches tend to compete with each other. And we try to involve churches in being non-competitive. This is not about trying to enlarge your church or make a name for your church. Uh, we try to help churches to realize, hey, we're in this together. Jesus said, "You'll have the poor always." He wasn't saying that to say that, so don't worry about it. They're going to be here anyway. He was saying, hey, it should be taken for granted that you're going to take care of the poor. But this opportunity to anoint me before my death is only now. Take care of the poor. And then training churches, trying to help churches to be able to deal, number one, biblically, the understanding of the responsibility of the church to take the needy plight as a mission in your church, helping them to understand poverty with programs of training, for example, building bridges out of poverty and poverty simulation, helping understand the community impact of making a difference in the lives of those of the 124 people that we have worked with in a holistic way in WIN. You can see it's changing the community by changing the lives of the people that we've been involved with in this way. And then remembering that it's whole person care, not just dealing with the most noticeable need or what they've identified as the primary need, but whole person care. So the quality control is a very important part of what we're doing. And part of that is collecting data, that we have to know what's being done, how it's being done, and follow through on it. So oftentimes the people that we're working with, they're volunteers, they're working hard, and they have very little authority, and they feel like they have a huge amount of responsibility. And our being able to give some guidance and help and appreciation is so valuable in that. It needs to be led by our values and mission. Don't forget what we're about and the mission that we're on. That people are more important than numbers. Although we need to collect data, we need to have those numbers. The people are more important. And sometimes we can get so caught up in trying to keep the data going and making sure that we get it into our database and all of that, that people can begin to feel like they're being ignored. And we just can't do that. We must not make promises that we cannot keep. Many of the people that we'll work with will be people who have been disappointed with people promising something that they could not bring to fruition. So we will not do that. If you expect your clients to keep their appointments, then you better provide quality service and resources. WIN cannot control how partners serve. We're determined not to interfere with how they serve, but we can communicate the need for client-driven service. And sometimes our partners have tweaked how they do what they do because we've been in touch with a number of people who need it a little different. And so they've been able to change a few things. But we try our best to let our service providers do their job. They're the experts in it, but we'll do our best to try to support them. And again, remember the mission, and the greatest resource, of course, is God and the power of the Holy Spirit and prayer. We have to take care of our caregivers. We have to build strong teamwork. We have to encourage. We have to train. We have to recruit volunteers. We have to keep telling the success stories. That's what keeps it alive. People being able to know that this works and staying after it. And of course, those who are caregivers have to take care of themselves. And the chaplain has to take care of himself also. And we have to deal with when we see burnout, when we see service fatigue happening. Oftentimes, the chaplain needs to be available to help with that. Some of the challenges that we've been dealing with, of course, raising money is always a challenge. We made a commitment when we started this that we would not take money from our partners. that if you're going to agree to a partnership with us and be one of our places that we can refer to, we will not be trying to get our money, our operation expenses from your money, the referrals money. And that's difficult. That means we have to be creative in how we raise money. Because when you have 51 partners that are raising money out in the community, and you are determined not to take away their money that's committed to them, you want their money to be able to serve their work so that they can be a good referral. And so raising money is a challenge. We work trying to get grants. We try to go to those places that have not been touched by our partners. The hospital has been a challenge. I think we've solved a lot of that, but early on, we found the hospital was in great need of what we were trying to do, especially in people returning to the ED. They wanted to cut down on those numbers. They wanted to be able to provide more of a holistic care for people as they're being discharged from the hospital. So they very much wanted to be partnered with us. But on the other hand, the HIPAA requirements were so difficult to maneuver around. But I think we've managed to begin to get down that path in a way that honors all aspects of that. And it'll continue to need to be tweaked as we find problems that arise. Mental health, there's a huge shortage of mental health resources in Arath County. I would say it's probably true everywhere. And we continue to struggle with that. Homelessness is a real problem, as I mentioned. And I would also mention with that, transportation is a huge problem. Even in trying to be able to provide safe shelter, we have found that where we have to get it for our clients is far away from the resources that they need. And so transportation is a real issue in that as well. Rural health is a challenge. Many that are living in the outskirts of the county, away from the county seat of Stephenville, do not have the resources for their well-being. Working out the partnerships, every memorandum of understanding that we work out with our partners is individual. We do not have a form MOU with our partners. We work it out individually for that relationship of what they provide and how we can work together as a good referral system. The research, the data gathering, there's challenges in different ways about it. Number one is having a really good database that can do what we need it to do for all the people that we're dealing with and the different resources that we're providing, but also being careful. And Tarleton has been a tremendous help to us in helping us with understanding how to develop our database and so forth. But at the same time, there's that aspect of data becoming more important than the person. And so compassion and data. I just threw this slide in there to say, if you've never been involved in a poverty simulation, man, go do it. It is impacting, and training in bridges us out of poverty, and training in how to change policy for the needs in your community. For example, trying to deal with policy concerning housing and that sort of thing. That training would be really valuable. If you hope to be a community chaplain in the future, those are two areas that you really need to see. Everyone can benefit from a poverty simulation. And I can tell you some great stories that have come out of the three that we have been involved in. This is a flyer that we use in trying to tell people that we exist, and you'll see that there's all the information there. You might want to use that QR code if you want to go to our website and see what's going on there. So there's my presentation. I hope it was beneficial. So where do we go from here, David?
Well, we've had a couple of questions come in on the chat that I can ask, and then we may have a little time for a little more. Two questions. One person asked, who was the source of y'all's grant as things were getting started? Was it from Texas Health or another organization?
Yes, it was from Texas Health. They have a foundation that they've they keep this money coming in, and it's used for developing more ways of increasing well-being. And the every so often they open the door for, you know, the opportunity to apply for grants. And you probably, if you just seek through any of the Texas Health associated hospitals, they'll have information about grants that come up from time to time. They more often emphasize in their grants a startup, something that's not been done before, something that's new to a community, and not providing for help on ongoing projects. So we haven't benefited from, once we got going, from Texas Health, but they were the help that we needed to get started.
Okay, great. And then another one that was in the chat, someone asked, so is WIN now a business entity, like a not-for-profit?
We're a nonprofit. Tax exempt 501c3. So yes, we started that way. And when we started the program, uh, it was with a full intention of being a nonprofit. And our partners are primarily nonprofits, but at least when we started, of the about a dozen that were involved with us, they were nonprofits. But as time has gone on, other groups have joined in with us. For example, we have some money management people that are working with us, that they volunteer their time and they do budget counseling and things like that. But they are for-profit institutions, and there's a number of those that are a part of what we do now. There's also government agencies. There are service providers that are connected with churches. So, but we ourselves, we're a not-for-profit.
Sounds good. Well, Paul, those are the questions we have in the chat. I can pass it over to you if you have other things you want to do or make sure we do before we close up.
Well, this has been a great session. Really appreciate everybody's participation. David, one thought that occurred to me as you were presenting was, Erath County is, my impression is mostly rural. Is that right? You've got Stephenville is
Correct.
probably the county seat.
Uh,
The level of need in that community is probably consistent with the level of need everywhere. But I was just blown away by the community spirit that is reflected in this program. And I think that your involvement with it and the involvement of other faith communities in it, I think is a powerful witness, and also is consistent with what we're called to as followers of Jesus in meeting needs that exist in our communities. And I just really commend you for that. One housekeeping note, just want to remind you that the calendar dates for our upcoming Lunch and Learn sessions in 2026 are April 2nd, July 2nd, and October 1st. And while we have been meeting today. One member of this group has actually volunteered to do a presentation. So I'll leave that person nameless for now, but um, anybody else would like to volunteer, we've got another opening there. So um, please keep that in mind. That's all I have. David Bearden, do you have any additional comments?
Just thank you for letting me share with us. I've had a few opportunities to present about what we're doing, but it's great to share it with people of a common spirit and desire to serve the Lord. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you. David Knight, do you have any additional comments?
I just say thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate y'all comments and participation. Just remind you that on the Siburt Institute website, siburtinstitute.org/chaplaincy, that's the homepage for all the resources we have there. So especially if you're recently endorsed or a new member of the fellowship, that's a great place that you can go. We've got the archives of the old lunch and learns that have been going on for a couple of years now. There's the Tapestry newsletter that comes out every 2 months. The next one's going to be coming out in about a week. So if you haven't signed up for Tapestry, you can find that there. But again, it's just siburtinstitute.org/chaplaincy.
Thank you for all of that. That concludes our session for today. We'll see you on April 2nd. Take care, everybody.